Morning. Oh, no, that's what my notes say. It's now afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Frank Seawright. I'm from the town of Windham, and it so happens that I am the chairman of the select board there in Windham. I am not an expert on anything, and I'm going to say the word decibel once, and I just did it. So now I'm going to go into my story of what has happened in Windham.
Except if you're going to talk about that project that might come before us, I'm not sure how much we can hear about that.
Okay. As far as I know, at this point, the project has been discontinued.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead and tell your story then?
Okay.
We'll let you know if it sounds like it might be becoming a problem.
All right. Okay, our town has a pretty well-written town plan. It's been approved by the regional commission, and it has a very progressive energy component in it. Our town plan does prohibit industrial scale wind development, but overall we are not opposed to renewable energy. In fact, my wife and I put up the first electricity generating turbine in the town of Windham, and I think it was operational in about 2005. And we subsequently have put in net meter solar panels, so we're not opposed to renewables. We do understand that. We also have a town energy committee, and the energy committee is very active, and we have several energy conservation projects under consideration now or in work. Things like putting in more energy efficient lighting in the school. We also are exploring rebuilding or remodeling our town garage to make it more energy efficient. We also are looking at putting solar panels on the garage to generate power. And our town meeting hall is over 200 years old, so making it more energy efficient is a pretty difficult task. I want to give you a little bit of history right now about why I'm here and what I'm going to say. About 4.5 or maybe almost 5 years ago, the wind developer Iberdrola of Spain came to our town and told us that they intended to install a large installation on about 3,000 acres of property that's owned by one person there in the town of Windham. They said that they were aware of our town plan, that they were going to go ahead with their project. Anyway, at that point there was no details about the project, not how many turbines, not where they would be, no details at all, saying it was entirely too early for anything like that. After that, they did install 3 Met towers, collected data. In fact, they are still up. They haven't removed them yet. Their certificate runs for about another year. But during that time, we heard very little from them. The intervening years, we had periodic mailings. They conducted site visits out to look at the Met towers and had a few barbecues and things like that. Then in October of 2015, they finally presented what they said was a preliminary project layout. And along at that same time, they proposed what they called an economic benefits package of $715,000 per year to the town of Windham. It would be paid directly to the town of Windham to be used however the voters saw fit to use it. During the time that they made the presentation of the preliminary layout, they did say that they would not go forward with the project if the town voted against the project, and then they specified later on, we got clear that if the question was put on the ballot using language that they proposed on the November the 8th ballot, and it was voted on to general election, if the town voted no, they would discontinue the project. If you are anything aware, that is what happened, but I'll go on with the story. After we got the preliminary proposal from them, we subsequently we were approached about 3 times by a local group of some small number of people wanting the town to begin to negotiate with Iberdrola, even though there was no concrete final project. So we didn't understand what would we be negotiating over. There was no project, And in fact, we did not want the project, and we thought that negotiating would imply that we did accept it. So we declined their invitation. They subsequently, the company wrote us a letter asking us to do that, and we wrote them back a letter describing that they said in their letter that they thought the town, the site was a good one for wind. We wrote them back and told them that from our analysis, and during that 4 years, we had developed expertise in using geographic information software, and some of the people in town have experience and expertise in data collection and analysis, and we have wildlife biologists. So we were able to look at the site and determine, their determination was, from their perspective, which is, was there sufficient wind for them to put the project together and make money? Ours was, can we live with this project if it's here? We decided, from what we could see, that we could not. It's too compact a site, and too many homes would be within about, almost, I think about 49% of the homes on the Windham Grand List would be within about 1.25 miles of turbines. When we sent our letter to them declining their invitation to negotiate, they then ensued in the press of sort of a public exchange of arguments and editorials, letters to the editor and things like that between the town of Windham and Iberdrola about the project. And then we did not negotiate with them, but they formed, through contacts they located in the community, they formed a sort of a secret committee that would negotiate with them. They even funded that committee with money in an escrow account. I don't know how much, and the people who participated in the secret negotiations, I'm told, had to sign a confidentiality agreement, so we probably won't know what went on there. But the company was able then to use the fact that they had corresponded with these people as an excuse or reason for saying that they had worked with the community, listened to their concerns, and had responded to them. And then they subsequently made another final proposal for putting up the project. It had reduced fewer numbers of turbines. The overall amount of money that would be coming to the state was reduced actually from $715,000 to $500,000. But they did change it in that they said they would make payments to every registered voter in the town of Windham, a payment of $1,100 a year for about 20 years if the vote went in their direction. That proposal was made its way eventually to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State was very concerned that this sounded very much like paying for votes. That was a big level of concern, and I think there will be legislation introduced this year probably by the Secretary of State and maybe others to keep that from happening again. Now, coming to the vote, Windham has 314 registered voters in the town. We have never had more than 70% voter turnout. This year, with that question being on the ballot, we had a 92% voter turnout. And in that vote, 181 people voted no, they did not support the project, and 101 voted yes. And so before the night was over, and the vote was quite similar, by the way, in the town of Grafton, which is our sister city and was part of the planned project. The vote was the same there, and before the night was over, Iberdrola had said that they would honor the vote and they would discontinue the project, and they have. But I want to tell you, you might ask, why did the town vote against the project, since there was a substantial amount of money being offered to people? And from my standpoint, I think a lot of people were actually repulsed by the idea of being paid to vote in a certain way. But apart from that, I think overall, most of us did not feel like the provisions under 248 would provide sufficient protection for our town. we just didn't have that trust. We didn't want to have the same experience that they've had in Sheffield, Lowell, and Georgia Mountain. And there's lots of other negative reports from around the nation. I think the other thing is Windham is really a jewel. If you've never been there, you should drive through and take a look. It's a rough jewel, though. It's not like the towns you'll see in Vermont Life magazine. It's pretty rough. It's a hard place to live. It's cold in the winter, a lot of snow. But the people who do gravitate there and stay there really like it. And lots of people there live really in harmony with nature. There's lots of bird watchers, amateur botanists, wildlife biologists, hikers, that kind of thing. What I'm trying to get at is we are very concerned about aesthetics. And in the questions that we responded to at the beginning of this, our town lawyer had researched this, and he came up with this statement from the statutes. Aesthetics is referenced within the statutory language of section 248B5, but a fair statutory construction of 248B5 is that aesthetics must be analyzed with due consideration, having been given to both 10 VSA section 86, A1, air, and 8, aesthetics. And he says to do otherwise is to overlook the legislative directive and fail to properly assess aesthetics under section 248. And our review of prior wind projects is that no noise assessment under section 6086B8 as required by section 248B5 has occurred in the state of Vermont. And another reason that we are opposed to the site, in addition to the ones I've just mentioned, is that the site proposed was on very critical wildlife habitat in the headwaters of streams on South Fork of the Saxon River. And we just could not see that that was be an adequate place for this. So the last thing I want to say is the town of Windham does feel that the provisions under Act 250 do provide good protection, and we hope that out of these hearings that the board can repair the 248 siting process so that people can have as much trust in 250 as they do that 248. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could you
Yes.
just spell your last name for me, please?
Yeah, SEAWRIGHT.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I would just like to note that we appreciated your comments, and especially the point about where sound should be, which part of the statute sound should be analyzed under. We'll take that recommendation and consider it. I don't know that you actually said much else about the net metering rules, so I think sound. I mean, sorry, you're doing something. About the sound potential sound rule. So at this point, I'd like to move on to the next presenter, if that's agreeable with folks, which is Vermont Public Interest Research Group.